Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader of North Korea, stands as one of the most enigmatic and controversial figures on the global stage. Ascending to power in 2011 after the death of his father, Kim Jong-il, his leadership has been marked by a combination of ruthless control, nuclear brinkmanship, and a carefully crafted personality cult. For the West, understanding Kim Jong-un means unraveling a complex puzzle that blends old-school totalitarianism with modern geopolitical strategy and, of course, uncovering the many secrets cloaked behind North Korea's isolation. Part 1. Introduction. The smiling tyrant in the shadows. To the average Westerner, Kim Jong-un might appear as a strange paradox, a chubby dictator with a peculiar haircut, laughing during missile launches and waving from palace balconies. For years, global headlines have alternated between mocking him and fearing him. Cartoons have turned him into a meme, while governments classify him as one of the greatest threats to international security. Yet, beneath that carefully curated image lies a regime soaked in silence, blood, and iron-fisted control. And at the heart of it all is a man who inherited a dynasty of fear and evolved it into a modern machinery of absolute oppression. Kim Jong-un was born into power, privilege, and paranoia, the youngest son of Kim Jong-il, and the grandson of North Korea's founding dictator Kim Il-sung. He wasn't raised like a traditional leader. He was molded like a weapon. His childhood was a secret even to his own people. He studied abroad under a fake name in Switzerland, where, according to former classmates, he was quiet, obsessed with basketball, and seemed detached from the world around him. But when he returned to North Korea, he stepped into a blood-stained theater of power plays and purges. When his father died in December 2011, the world barely knew his name. Intelligence agencies scrambled for information. Journalists speculated endlessly, and analysts warned, "This is not a mere boy inheriting a throne. This is a regime designed for brutality." Now fused with the volatility of youth and unchecked ambition, they were right. In just a few short years, Kim Jong-un went from unknown figure to feared autocrat. He purged top generals. He executed his own uncle. He ordered the public assassination of his half-brother in a foreign airport using VX nerve agent, a chemical weapon banned under international law. And while the global stage debated whether to laugh at his antics or fear his missiles, millions of North Koreans remained trapped in a nightmare, a land where the leader is worshipped as a god. And a single act of defiance can doom 3 generations of a family. Kim doesn't just rule North Korea, he isolates it, weaponizes it, and feeds off its silence. Under his command, the regime has developed advanced nuclear weapons, launched intercontinental ballistic missiles, and threatened to turn Seoul and Tokyo into seas of fire. Yet what lies behind the rockets and the spectacles is something far more disturbing, a system designed to crush human dignity and erase hope. Western audiences are often shielded from the true horror of North Korea. News coverage may focus on summits, missile tests, or odd quotes, but rarely do they confront the nightmarish human rights abuses that define daily life inside the DPRK. Behind the borders of this Orwellian state are concentration camps where children grow up in barbed wire. Women are raped by prison guards with impunity, and citizens are executed for watching foreign films. The regime doesn't just punish dissent, it obliterates the possibility of it. The United Nations has called North Korea's crimes against humanity without parallel in the contemporary world. Yet even that phrase cannot fully capture the surreal, suffocating terror that defines existence in Kim Jong-un's domain. For those who've managed to escape the regime, risking everything in the process, the stories are haunting: forced starvation, public executions, families torn apart, lives erased without a trace. This is not simply a dictator clinging to power, it is a regime of calibrated cruelty, designed to sustain itself through lies, terror, and nuclear blackmail. And Kim Jong-un, far from being a figurehead, is the architect. In the following chapters, we will expose the hidden mechanics of this brutal system. We will explore Kim's rise to power, the ruthless tactics he used to dominate his inner circle, and the unspeakable suffering inflicted upon his people. We will peel back the propaganda, examine the evidence, and give voice to the silenced. This is not just a political story. It is a story of mass suffering, global complicity, and a tyrant who has convinced the world to look away. Part 2: The Rise of a Dictator. When Kim Jong-il died in December 2011, the world braced for chaos. North Korea had long been a volatile black hole of information, and the idea that power would transfer to a young, unknown son in his 20s seemed absurd, even suicidal. Intelligence analysts in Seoul, Washington, and Tokyo predicted the regime might collapse from within. After all, Kim Jong-un had virtually no military experience, no political credibility, and no real track record. He was, at best, the spoiled heir to a hereditary dictatorship, and at worst, a puppet waiting to be replaced by generals lurking in the shadows. They underestimated him. Within weeks, Kim Jong-un began consolidating power with brutal efficiency. His first targets weren't external enemies, but members of his own inner circle, those who might question his authority or undermine his legitimacy. Unlike his grandfather, who built a cult over decades, or his father, who ruled through cautious manipulation, Kim Jong-un moved quickly and mercilessly. He understood the rules of survival in North Korean politics. Loyalty is temporary. Fear is permanent. The murder of his own blood, Jang Song-thaek. One of his first and most notorious acts of consolidation was the execution of his uncle, Jang Song-thaek, in 2013. Jang wasn't just any relative, he was a political titan. Widely considered the second most powerful man in the country. He had managed business ties with China, overseen key economic decisions, and reportedly acted as a mentor to the young Kim during the transitional period. Yet Kim had him arrested during a live televised meeting, accused of treachery and womanizing, and executed days later, reportedly by anti-aircraft guns. Though accounts vary, this wasn't just punishment, it was a message. The execution shocked even hardened members of the regime. It proved that no one, not even family, was safe. And it marked Kim Jong-un as a different kind of ruler, not a silent caretaker like his father, but a young Caesar prepared to bathe the palace in blood. A system of loyalty through terror. Kim followed up with purges of senior military officials, including Ri Yong-ho, Chief of the General Staff, and Hyun Yong-chul, Minister of People's Armed Forces, who was allegedly executed with a ZPU-4 anti-aircraft gun in front of hundreds of officials for falling asleep during a meeting. More than 300 officials were reportedly purged in the first few years of Kim's reign, some imprisoned, others executed, many simply disappeared. This strategy served a dual purpose: eliminate potential rivals and create a culture of paranoia. Loyalty in North Korea is not earned through ideology or competence, it is enforced through mortal fear. Even Kim Jong-nam, Kim Jong-un's half-brother and one-time heir apparent, wasn't spared. After living in semi-exile for years and showing mild criticism toward the regime, Kim Jong-nam was assassinated in 2017 in Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Two women, allegedly manipulated into believing they were part of a prank TV show, smeared VX nerve agent on his face. He died within 20 minutes. The use of VX, a chemical weapon of mass destruction, was not only brazen. It was symbolic. Kim had turned the entire globe into his personal hunting ground. The transformation of the boy leader. From 2011 to 2015, Kim Jong-un transformed from a political novice into an absolute ruler. He rebuilt the cult of personality, crafted a public image inspired by his grandfather Kim Il-sung, including the same haircut, attire, and gestures, and positioned himself as both modern and militaristic. Propaganda videos showed him inspecting tanks, laughing with generals, giving on-the-spot guidance to farms and factories. The media called him the Great Successor. Statues were erected, songs were written, children were taught to revere him as a living god. But behind this carefully choreographed persona was a man obsessed with power. And unlike his predecessors, Kim Jong-un wielded that power more aggressively, more openly, and with a calculated indifference to the lives it destroyed. The myth of youthful reform. In the early days, there was naive hope among some analysts and journalists that Kim might become a reformer. After all, he was Western educated, reportedly loved American culture, particularly NBA basketball, and had shown signs of economic interest. There was speculation that he might be North Korea's Deng Xiaoping, a man who would open the country while retaining political control. That illusion died quickly. Under Kim, the surveillance state grew more sophisticated, not less. Border controls were tightened. Foreign media was more restricted. Punishments for watching South Korean dramas or listening to foreign music escalated from fines to public executions. The black markets that had allowed some civilian entrepreneurship were suppressed, then co-opted into state-run markets controlled by elites. If anything, Kim took the darkest elements of his father's rule and updated them with modern efficiency. While foreign leaders and journalists debated whether he could be reasoned with, he quietly constructed new labor camps, expanded the prison network, and accelerated work on nuclear and missile programs. Paranoia as policy. One of the defining characteristics of Kim Jong-un's rule is strategic paranoia. He doesn't just fear coups or uprisings, he anticipates them. His regime is structured to prevent not just dissent, but the very thought of dissent. Entire families are punished for the crimes of one member. Informants are rewarded for reporting impure thoughts. Loyalty is monitored not only by state agents but by neighbors, teachers, and even children. This isn't madness. It's a form of political survival that has worked for 3 generations. And Kim has perfected it. In a country with no elections, no freedom of press, no internet, and no opposition parties, power is not measured by popularity. It's measured by how deeply fear is embedded into the daily lives of the people. And fear, in Kim's North Korea, is not just a tool, it is the air everyone breathes. Part 3. Life inside the Hermit Kingdom. To understand Kim Jong-un's regime, one must look not only at the missiles and the military parades, but at the people who are not allowed to speak, not allowed to move freely, and not allowed to dream. For most of the 25 million citizens living under Kim's iron rule, daily life is not just hard, it is a carefully designed cage. The outside world knows shockingly little about what it means to be born, live, and die inside the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. But for those who have escaped, and for the rare foreign eyes who have witnessed slivers of the truth, the portrait that emerges is one of relentless control, hunger, fear, and systemic dehumanization. A nation of prisoners. North Korea under Kim Jong-un isn't a country, it's a prison state. Borders are sealed. Foreign media is banned. Internet access is reserved for a tiny elite. Phones are monitored. Travel within the country requires permits. The average North Korean has no idea what the outside world looks like, let alone how others view their own country. The most grotesque manifestation of this totalitarian control is the network of political prison camps, known as Kwan Lee So. These are not prisons in any conventional sense. They are gulags, vast forced labor camps where tens of thousands are worked to death, tortured, starved, or executed. Estimates suggest that up to 120,000 people are currently imprisoned in these camps, though exact numbers are impossible to verify due to the regime's secrecy. What makes this system uniquely horrifying is the doctrine of guilt by association. 3 generations of a family can be imprisoned for the crime of one person. If a man is caught listening to South Korean radio or doubting the regime, his wife, children, and even grandchildren can vanish with him. Former prisoners have told of horrific conditions: children born in captivity, women raped by guards, starvation so severe that inmates dig through animal waste for kernels of undigested corn. One defector, Shin Dong-hyuk, born inside Camp 14, described watching his mother and brother executed for trying to escape, a punishment he himself reported to the guards. Having been brainwashed to believe loyalty required betrayal. These camps exist not just to punish, but to terrorize the population into obedience. The cult of Kim, worship as law. From birth, every North Korean is indoctrinated to worship Kim Jong-un, not metaphorically, but literally. Portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il hang in every home, school, and workplace. Now, Kim Jong-un's image joins theirs. Treated with reverence, citizens must clean the portraits daily, often with special cloths. And any perceived disrespect, even accidental, can lead to arrest. Children learn songs glorifying Kim before they can read. Textbooks teach that he is a genius military strategist, a compassionate father, and a near-divine figure. Natural disasters, harvests, even the weather are credited to his benevolent leadership. This isn't just propaganda, it's institutionalized idolatry. The state demands emotional loyalty, not just political obedience. People must cry on command when leaders die, cheer with zeal during parades, and thank Kim Jong-un for the smallest of mercies, like being allowed to live in their assigned regions or eat state-rationed food, when rations exist. For the average North Korean, loving Kim isn't an option. It's survival. Starvation is policy. Despite being a country with rich mineral resources and a strong work ethic among its people, North Korea routinely faces famine-like conditions. This is not merely due to sanctions or natural disasters, it is the result of economic mismanagement and deliberate state policy. Under Kim Jong-un, food shortages have become increasingly severe. After sealing borders during the COVID-19 pandemic, the regime cut off much of its informal trade with China. Prices of basic goods skyrocketed, and stories of people starving to death in the streets became common in border towns. Yet while the people suffer, the elite thrive. Kim's government continues to invest heavily in missiles, nuclear programs, palaces, and luxury imports. Satellite imagery has revealed multiple mansions, private islands, and recreational facilities reserved exclusively for Kim and his inner circle. Meanwhile, the average citizen depends on informal black markets, jongmadang, for basic survival. Even these are often raided, regulated, or taxed into the ground by authorities. The war on information. Perhaps the most cruel tactic of Kim's regime is its war against truth. In most dictatorship, people live in fear but still know they're oppressed. In North Korea, many citizens don't even know they're enslaved. They believe the rest of the world is poorer, hungrier, and more dangerous than their own country. Defectors have often described the moment they first saw a South Korean drama or foreign film as life-altering. One woman described crying uncontrollably when she realized that women in the South wear makeup, drive cars, and choose who they marry, freedoms that didn't even occur to her as possible. Kim understands this threat. He has escalated punishments for consuming foreign media. In 2021, the regime passed a reactionary thought and culture elimination law, which authorizes the execution of those who distribute South Korean content, and long prison sentences for mere possession. Students have been forced to watch classmates be executed as warnings. Teenagers have been imprisoned for life for sharing K-dramas on USB sticks. Even defectors who successfully escape often face lifelong fear. Many live in hiding in China, which frequently repatriates North Koreans, sending them back to torture, prison, or execution. Kim's regime treats escapees not as lost citizens, but as traitors to be destroyed. Women under the regime. Women in North Korea endure a unique double oppression. Not only are they subject to the same political and economic hardship as men, but they also face routine sexual violence, especially from government officials. Defectors report that rape by guards is common in prison camps and detention centers. There is no concept of consent under a regime where all authority figures are untouchable. In many cases, women are coerced into sex by soldiers, police, or party members in exchange for protection or food. If they resist, they risk punishment, or worse, silence. Abortion is banned, yet women who become pregnant in camps, often due to rape, are forcibly aborted or executed. In some cases, babies born in prisons are immediately killed, especially if the father is presumed to be Chinese. A practice rooted in racial purity doctrine. There is no #MeToo in North Korea. There is only silence and survival. A nation built on fear. The tragedy of North Korea is not simply the cruelty of its leader. It is the depth of its silence, how thoroughly the regime has suppressed independent thought, love, creativity, dissent, and even identity. Imagine growing up never hearing a foreign song, never seeing a real internet, never reading a book not approved by the regime, never choosing your job, your city, your future, or your thoughts. Imagine believing that the man who starves you is your father. your savior, your God. That is life inside Kim Jong-un's kingdom. Part 4, Crimes Against Humanity. In 2014, the United Nations Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea released a damning 372-page report. Its conclusion was unambiguous: the gravity, scale and nature of these violations reveal a state that does not have any parallel in the contemporary world. The regime of Kim Jong-un was accused of crimes against humanity, not as a vague diplomatic expression, but as specific legal charges under international law: murder, enslavement, torture, rape, forced abortion, persecution, enforced disappearances, and extermination. This wasn't rhetoric. It was evidence-based. Murder and execution as tools of governance. Under Kim Jong-un, the death penalty is not an extraordinary punishment, it is a routine administrative tool. Execution is used not just for treason or defection, but for acts as trivial as watching South Korean TV shows, owning a Bible, or disrespecting portraits of the Kims. In some cases, entire families are executed together. The most terrifying aspect is the spectacle of execution. Public killings, especially in rural provinces, are used to instill terror. Children are often forced to watch. In 2020, reports emerged that a man was executed by firing squad for selling foreign content. Villagers, including minors, were forced to attend. The message: this is what happens when you break the rules. Meanwhile, elite executions are often even more grotesque. From accounts of anti-aircraft guns vaporizing bodies to flamethrowers used on perceived traitors. The goal is not just punishment, it's domination through spectacle. These are not rogue acts. They are policy, sanctioned, systematic, planned. Slavery in the 21st century. Kim Jong-un's North Korea operates one of the largest modern-day slave systems on Earth. The regime relies on forced labor in nearly every sector: agriculture, mining, construction, manufacturing, and even overseas deployments. At home, millions are conscripted into involuntary work units starting in childhood. Students are forced to help with harvests, mining, or infrastructure projects under patriotic duty. Adults are assigned jobs they cannot refuse, often without pay or in dangerous, unsanitary conditions. Worse still is the foreign labor program, through which the regime exports tens of thousands of North Korean workers to countries such as China, Russia, the Middle East, and parts of Africa. These workers build stadiums, roads, and infrastructure, not for personal profit, but to generate foreign currency for the regime. They live under surveillance, are forbidden from speaking to locals, and see up to 90% of their wages seized by state agents. These people are essentially state-owned slaves, trapped abroad with no rights and no freedom to escape. The UN has called this system forced labor on an industrial scale. Torture and inhumane detention. Accounts from survivors of North Korea's detention centers paint a picture of unrelenting brutality. The process of arrest, interrogation, and detention is deliberately designed to break the human body and mind. Detainees, many of whom are arrested for vague political offenses, are beaten, starved, and forced into stress positions for hours or days. Some are kept in boxes too small to stand in. Others are made to crawl on their knees across gravel until their flesh is shredded. In pre-trial detention, torture is routine. Electric shocks, waterboarding, and sexual violence are all part of the process to force confessions. Real or fabricated, there is no due process, no lawyers, no appeals. One defector described being forced to watch a pregnant woman beaten until she miscarried. Others spoke of being denied food until they began hallucinating, and then being punished for mental instability. This is not a breakdown of law. It is the law. Enforced disappearances and psychological extermination. North Korea's political prison camps are hidden zones of extermination, not in the sense of gas chambers, but of slow, methodical, multi-generational destruction. Entire families vanish overnight, no charges, no trial, no record. They are taken to remote camps like Camp 14, Camp 15, Camp 18, places so secretive they don't exist on official maps, but are visible via satellite and confirmed by survivor testimony. There, people are worked to death, beaten to death, starved to death, or simply erased. Prisoners receive no medical care, minimal food, and must work 12 to 16 hours a day in dangerous conditions. They live in huts with no heat. They are denied knowledge of the outside world. Children born in the camps grow up knowing nothing else. This is not a justice system. It is a machine of annihilation. A policy of removing not just individuals, but entire bloodlines, from the face of the earth. Sexual violence and gendered crimes. The use of sexual violence by the Kim regime is not random, it is structural. Women are routinely subjected to rape, forced abortions, and sexual humiliation, particularly in prisons and labor camps. Guards assault female prisoners with impunity. There is no reporting mechanism, no protection, and no justice. In many cases, women trying to escape to China are trafficked into forced marriages or prostitution. When caught and deported back to North Korea, they are treated as traitors. Pregnant women repatriated from China are often forced to abort their children, especially if the father is Chinese. A practice rooted in Kim's racial purity doctrine. This isn't incidental abuse, it is state-enabled gender violence, weaponized to degrade, control, and erase. Religious persecution. Religion in North Korea is not banned, it is obliterated. Christianity, in particular, is considered a mortal threat to the regime. This is because belief in a god undermines the central myth of the regime, that the Kim family is divine. Possession of a Bible can result in execution or life imprisonment. Entire underground churches have been rounded up and exterminated. Converts are tortured into renouncing their faith or made to watch their families suffer as punishment. Former detainees report witnessing public executions of pastors and secret believers. One woman described fellow inmates forced to kneel for hours on stones while repeating, "Kim Il-sung is the only God." Human rights groups estimate that tens of thousands of Christians are imprisoned in North Korea's Gulag system. For them, worship is not just a crime, it is a death sentence. International law. Why nothing has been done? Despite the overwhelming evidence, Kim Jong-un has not been brought before an international tribunal. Why? The short answer: geopolitics. North Korea is protected at the United Nations Security Council by its historical ally, China, which vetoes most attempts to hold the regime accountable. Russia has joined in this protective stance in recent years. Meanwhile, the international community, despite loud condemnations, has failed to meaningfully intervene. The crimes continue, the silence deepens, and the bodies pile up. Part 5, The Nuclear Shield, How Kim Uses Missiles to Blackmail the World. If North Korea were just another brutal dictatorship, the world might treat it the same way it treats other rogue regimes, through pressure, sanctions, or even military intervention. But Kim Jong-un has a trump card. And he knows it: nuclear weapons. Since taking power in 2011, Kim has made nuclear deterrence the backbone of his survival strategy. It's not just about protecting the regime from foreign attack, it's about blackmailing the international community into inaction, ensuring that his regime can commit atrocities with impunity. His nuclear arsenal is not only a shield, it is a sword aimed at the heart of global stability. The rapid acceleration of a nuclear state. Under Kim Jong-il, North Korea had already begun developing nuclear weapons, conducting the country's first test in 2006. But it was under Kim Jong-un that the program accelerated with terrifying speed. In less than a decade, Kim has overseen over 150 ballistic missile tests, including ICBMs capable of reaching the U.S. mainland. Multiple nuclear warhead tests, including what the regime claimed was a hydrogen bomb in 2017. The miniaturization of warheads for tactical and mobile deployment. A growing arsenal of short-range and medium-range missiles capable of striking Japan, South Korea, and U.S. bases across the Pacific. These aren't symbolic displays, they're carefully calibrated threats. Why the nukes matter so much to Kim? Kim Jong-un is no fool. He watched what happened to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, who gave up his nuclear program only to be overthrown and executed. He studied Saddam Hussein's fate in Iraq. And he understands that, without nuclear weapons, his regime would be far more vulnerable to both internal and external collapse. To Kim, the nukes serve four primary purposes. Deterrence: no country, including the US, will dare invade a nuclear-armed North Korea without risking catastrophic retaliation. Bargaining chip: every missile test raises the stakes, forcing the world to come to the table, often offering aid. Sanctions relief, or concessions, prestige and power, internally. The weapons are portrayed as proof of his genius and strength, reinforcing the domestic propaganda machine. Global distraction: while the world watches the missiles, it ignores the gulags, the mass starvation, and the internal purges. In short, nukes are Kim's insurance policy, and his poker chip. Nuclear blackmail in action. North Korea's strategy is predictable. Provoke right-pointing arrow, panic right-pointing arrow, negotiate right-pointing arrow, gain right-pointing arrow, repeat. Here's how the cycle works. The regime tests a missile or a nuclear device. The international community reacts with condemnation, panic, and sometimes sanctions. Kim offers dialogue or a temporary freeze, demanding concessions in return, often food aid, fuel, or diplomatic recognition. Once he's received what he wants, he breaks the deal and starts again. This strategy has been effective for decades, regardless of who is in the White House or Blue House. Both liberal and conservative governments in South Korea, the US, and Japan have been pulled into this trap. The 2018-2019 summits between Kim Jong-un and Donald Trump are a perfect example. Kim achieved global legitimacy as a nuclear leader. A propaganda victory at home, he stood shoulder to shoulder with the US president. Suspension of US-South Korean military exercises. No real denuclearization commitments. It was one of the most successful diplomatic scams in modern history. Why sanctions don't work alone. Sanctions against North Korea have been extensive, but largely ineffective in changing the regime's behavior. Why? China and Russia provide lifelines. Despite official participation in sanctions, both nations have facilitated covert trade, fuel transfers, and labor export programs for North Korea. Kim prioritizes nukes over food. Even in famine conditions, the regime funnels resources into missile development. Elites are insulated. The ruling class in Pyongyang lives comfortably. It is the rural poor, those with no power, who suffer under sanctions. State smuggling networks. North Korea has built sophisticated global criminal operations, cybercrime, counterfeiting, weapons sales, and drug trafficking to fund the regime. The bitter irony is that punishing North Korea economically often strengthens Kim's domestic control, as hardship is blamed on foreign enemies and used to justify greater repression. The danger of miscalculation. The world is not just dealing with a dictator holding nukes, it is dealing with a young, isolated autocrat who has never faced a serious internal challenge, never stood for election, and never experienced defeat. This raises a chilling possibility. What if Kim actually believes he can win a limited conflict? As he continues to test increasingly advanced hypersonic missiles, submarine-launched systems, and tactical nukes, the margin for error shrinks. A miscommunication, a failed intercept, or a misread signal could spiral into catastrophe. Even a limited nuclear strike, say, on Seoul or a US base in Japan, could kill millions and trigger a global crisis. Kim knows this. That's why he pushes the world to the edge. He thrives in the gray zone between peace and war. Cyber warfare, the invisible battlefield. While missiles grab headlines, Kim's regime is also waging war in the digital realm. North Korea's cyber army, particularly Unit 121 and the Lazarus Group, is believed to number over 6,000 elite hackers. Their achievements include the 2014 Sony Pictures hack over the film The Interview, leaking internal data and causing massive disruption, a $81 million heist from the Bangladesh Central Bank in 2016, attacks on cryptocurrency exchanges, estimated to have stolen billions in digital assets, espionage campaigns targeting South Korean defense, NGOs, and international diplomats. This cyber strategy is part of Kim's asymmetric warfare doctrine: fight with whatever works, wherever possible, at minimal cost. And in this arena, North Korea is arguably one of the most dangerous actors on Earth. The endgame: Kim's dangerous gamble. What does Kim Jong-un really want? Some argue he simply seeks regime survival. Others believe he wants international recognition as a nuclear power, akin to India or Pakistan. A darker theory is that he envisions eventual unification of the Korean peninsula under Pyongyang's control, by coercion, propaganda, or, if ever possible, military force. What's certain is this: he will never give up his nuclear weapons voluntarily. To him, disarmament is suicide. This leaves the world in a dangerous bind. How do you stop a man who has committed mass atrocities, violated every norm of human rights, built a criminal empire, and now holds the power to incinerate cities? The truth is, we haven't figured that out yet. Part 6: The Hidden Wealth of the Kim Dynasty, Palaces, Private Islands, and Blood Money. To the outside world, North Korea appears as a crumbling dystopia: scarce food, blackouts, malnourished children, and propaganda posters peeling off concrete walls. But behind the Iron Curtain, a very different world exists, a world of luxury, opulence, and unimaginable excess. At the heart of it stands Kim Jong-un, a man whose people survive on cornmeal and powdered bugs, while he dines on imported cheeses, sips French wine, and rides in bulletproof Mercedes limousines. His hidden fortune and extravagant lifestyle are not rumors, they are facts. Tracked by defector testimony, satellite imagery, and leaked intelligence. This is the Korean aristocracy of blood and steel, a dynasty that has looted a nation for 3 generations. The Palace Network, Hidden Kingdoms of Excess. Kim Jong-un is estimated to maintain over 15 luxury compounds across the country. These are no ordinary residences. They include massive palaces with underground bunkers, private amusement parks and shooting ranges, indoor horse riding facilities, Olympic-sized pools, and cinema halls, and in at least 2 cases, private islands with yacht ports and villas. Satellite images show carefully landscaped grounds, anti-aircraft defenses, and dedicated railway lines leading to these compounds. Ordinary citizens are forbidden to even approach the perimeters. One of the most infamous is the Ryeongsong residence, northeast of Pyongyang, a fortress-like estate with a private train station, multiple villas, and elaborate air defense systems. It's believed to be Kim's main retreat, protected by layers of security forces who would shoot on sight. This is not just luxury. It is royal absolutism, funded by the suffering of 25 million people. The royal cargo, a life of imported excess. Despite being under some of the world's most extreme sanctions, Kim Jong-un manages to import a constant stream of luxury goods from abroad. Investigations have uncovered Mercedes-Benz S600s, Rolls-Royces, and Lexus SUVs, smuggled through China and Southeast Asia, Hennessy cognac and Bordeaux wine, reportedly consumed in state banquets while famine spread through the countryside, Cuban cigars, imported via diplomatic channels, a fleet of yachts and speedboats worth millions, hidden away for his inner circle's exclusive use. In 2019, the U.S. Department of the Treasury revealed how North Korean agents used front companies to buy over $4 million in luxury vehicles, routing them through Singapore, China, and Russia to avoid detection. Meanwhile, North Korea's elite enjoy access to designer clothing, foreign cosmetics, and even European hairstylists, while ordinary citizens are beaten for wearing skinny jeans or Western-style clothing. The Kim dynasty's shadow economy. How can a country under such tight international sanctions afford any of this? The answer lies in a global black market empire controlled directly by the regime. This shadow economy includes arms trafficking to rogue states and militant groups in Africa and the Middle East, counterfeiting of foreign currencies, especially supernotes of the US dollar, drug production, particularly methamphetamine and opium, which is exported covertly through Chinese criminal networks, rare earth and mineral smuggling, especially coal and gold, state-managed cybercrime, stealing cryptocurrency and targeting financial institutions. At the center of it all is Office 39, a secret division of the Workers' Party. Created decades ago, Office 39 is responsible for managing the Kim family's personal wealth, generating billions in illegal revenue each year. Office 39 controls offshore bank accounts, shell companies, ships flagged under foreign nations, and a vast network of agents abroad. Its purpose is singular: to keep Kim Jong-un rich and in power. The slaves who fund the throne. While Kim's palaces glitter in isolation, his people suffer in silence. Many of the regime's overseas earnings come from forced laborers, shipped to foreign countries to work under slave-like conditions. These laborers, some estimates say as many as 100,000, are deployed to Russia for construction and logging, China in restaurants, clothing factories, and hotels, Middle Eastern nations, working in dangerous conditions, often with no passports or rights. Their wages are seized, up to 90% goes directly to the regime. They live under constant surveillance, are denied contact with locals, and face severe punishment if they attempt escape. These men and women, many sent abroad as diplomats or guest workers, are modern slaves funding a nuclear tyranny. The cult of isolation, controlling the narrative. Kim understands that his wealth, if known widely, could spark unrest. That's why the domestic propaganda machine paints him as humble, self-sacrificing, and burdened by leadership. State-run TV shows him walking through snowy fields, inspecting cabbage farms or visiting flood zones in modest clothes. Newsreaders cry when announcing that he's working late for the people. Meanwhile, behind the curtain, Kim is flying in Italian chefs, commissioning new wine cellars, and attending lavish feasts. Defectors who've escaped often describe the moment of shock when they realize the extent of the regime's deceit. One woman said, "I grew up thinking the leader was starving for us. Then I saw his Rolex and private jet on a South Korean news channel." The regime responds to such revelations with immediate arrests. Anyone caught watching foreign media or discussing the Kim family's wealth is sent to prison, or worse. The blood money keeps flowing. Despite international efforts, the Kim dynasty's wealth continues to grow. Loopholes in sanctions, corrupt border officials, and silent enablers in global finance keep the pipeline open. Some banks have been fined for allowing transactions connected to North Korean shell companies. Others continue to look the other way. Private firms and shipowners sometimes unknowingly facilitate smuggling operations. And let's not forget the cyber front. In 2022 alone, North Korean hackers stole over $600 million in cryptocurrency. According to U.S. intelligence, money likely funneled into weapons development and luxury imports. This money fuels everything, from nuclear warheads to private zoos. A tale of two Koreas, the richest tyrant and the poorest people. North Korea is not a poor country by necessity, it is a looted country by design. While the Kim family enjoys unimaginable privilege, the average North Korean lives on less than $2 per day, has no access to the internet, eats meat only a few times a year, if lucky, cannot legally leave their town without government permission, must participate in endless, voluntary labor with no compensation, lives in fear of arrest, starvation, or political purge. The contrast is not just tragic. It is a crime against humanity funded by greed. Part 7, The Indoctrination Engine, How Kim Controls 25 Million Minds. Kim Jong-un does not rule North Korea by force alone. Guns and prisons can silence rebellion, but only indoctrination can erase the desire to rebel in the first place. This is perhaps the most chilling aspect of the North Korean regime, its absolute control over thought itself. From the moment a child is born to the day they die, they are enveloped in a psychological prison, a meticulously crafted world of lies, fear, worship, and obedience. It is not merely authoritarianism, it is totalitarianism in its purest form. And Kim Jong-un is its supreme architect. The Kim cult, a religion of blood. In North Korea, Kim Jong-un is not just a leader, he is a semi-divine figure. Part of a godlike dynasty. Children are taught that Kim Il-sung created the world, that Kim Jong-il could control the weather, and that Kim Jong-un has supernatural wisdom beyond his years. Every classroom, factory, and train station bears portraits of the Kims, flanked by fresh flowers and polished frames. Citizens are required to wear badges bearing the leaders' faces. Failing to do so, or damaging a portrait, is a criminal offense. Students recite loyalty pledges to Kim before class each day. These rituals are not optional, they are mandatory acts of worship. enforced by a surveillance state with no mercy. Kim did not invent this cult, but he has weaponized it with modern tools, digital censorship, biometric tracking, and mass mobilization campaigns that begin in preschool. Education as indoctrination. In most countries, education is about exploration, curiosity, and critical thinking. In North Korea, it is about obedience, militarism, and fear. By the age of 7, children are enrolled in the Young Pioneer Corps, a youth group modeled after Soviet communist traditions. From there, they advance into the Kim Il-sungist Kim Jong-ilist Youth League, where they are taught how to spot and report traitors, including their own parents. Songs glorifying the leader and demonizing foreigners, especially Americans and South Koreans. Fabricated history portraying North Korea as a paradise surrounded by enemies. School books are filled with images of Kim Jong-un performing miracles. Science lessons are twisted to match the official ideology. Mathematics problems are framed with militaristic themes. If 3 American imperialists are killed in battle each day, there is no space for truth, only loyalty. The 3 generations rule of guilt. One of the most terrifying tools Kim employs is the guilt by association policy, known as Yin JW Asia. Under this rule, if you commit a political crime, your children and grandchildren can be punished. Entire families are sent to labor camps for the actions of one member. Even questioning the government in private can lead to generational annihilation. This system creates self-censorship at a cellular level. You don't just fear for yourself, you fear for your bloodline. The result? Total silence, total obedience, even in your own home. The surveillance state. Everyone is a spy. Kim's North Korea is the most surveilled society on Earth. Not through technology, but through human informants. Every neighborhood has Inmanban, or people's units, cells of 20 to 40 families watched by a local leader. Citizens are required to attend weekly self-criticism sessions, where they confess real or imagined offenses. Spouses report on each other. Children report on their parents. Workers report on their colleagues. Foreign media is banned. Possessing a K-drama or a USB stick with foreign music is a ticket to the gulag, or worse. This web of fear is self-sustaining. You don't know who you can trust, so you trust no one. Punishment is spectacle. When obedience slips, punishment is swift, and often public. Public executions are staged in schoolyards and stadiums. Children are brought to watch. Dissenters are not just shot, they are sometimes executed by anti-aircraft guns. Their bodies obliterated as a warning. Labor camps like Yodok and Camp 14 house entire families, including children, under starvation conditions, forced to perform hard labor for decades. Testimonies from survivors paint a picture of hell on earth: torture, rape, forced abortions, and daily deaths from overwork. And yet, within the walls of these camps, prisoners are still forced to bow to portraits of Kim Jong-un every morning. Control of faith and identity. Religious belief is outlawed. The only religion is the worship of the supreme leader. Owning a Bible can lead to execution. Prayer is seen as treason, an act of allegiance to something other than the state. Christians and other believers are considered enemies of the revolution. Even names and identities are controlled. Parents cannot name children after the leaders. Citizens must seek permission to marry, move, or even grow their hair in a certain way. Every aspect of life is under the regime's boot. To be North Korean is to be owned. But cracks are forming. Despite the suffocating control, leaks are spreading. USB drives smuggled from China, hidden radios, and whispered stories from defectors have begun to chip away at the wall of lies. Some young North Koreans, especially in cities like Chongjin and Hamhung, now secretly listen to South Korean pop music or watch pirated dramas at night. Others trade goods on the black market, bypassing the state economy. These are not yet revolutions, but they are acts of rebellion in a country where rebellion equals death. And Kim knows it. That's why he has cracked down harder than ever. Increasing border patrols, executing those caught with outside media, and even banning slang terms and foreign-influenced speech. But the idea has escaped. The virus of freedom, once introduced, is hard to kill. The tragedy of a generation. There is a generation of North Koreans who know nothing of the outside world. They believe the South is a wasteland. Americans are cannibals. Kim Jong-un is the greatest human to ever live. These beliefs are not chosen, they are implanted. And to escape them is a Herculean feat of courage and trauma. But every year, a few make it out. They swim rivers, cross frozen mountains, or hide in shipping containers. They bring with them stories of horror and hope. Their voices are among the most powerful indictments of Kim Jong-un's regime. Conclusion: why the truth must be told. Kim Jong-un is not just a dictator. He is the head of a criminal regime, a destroyer of truth, a hoarder of stolen wealth, and a threat to global peace. His crimes span from domestic genocide to international terrorism, from psychological warfare to nuclear blackmail. The world must stop treating North Korea as an eccentric outlier. It is a modern-day slave state, governed by a mafia family with ballistic missiles. This is not a matter of ideology. It is a matter of human dignity. Millions of people remain trapped under Kim's boot, unseen and unheard, but they are not voiceless. The world has a choice: to speak for them, or to remain silent out of fear, fatigue, or cynicism. Because if we cannot speak the truth about one of the most openly evil regimes of our time, what hope do we have to face the hidden ones?